Hey everyone, this is your classmate Aaron, and for the next 15 or so minutes, I'll be talking to you about hearing aid technologies of today. The focus of this presentation is purely informational, and the goal given the short amount of time is to just introduce you to the wide variety of hearing aid technologies available today. So let me first give you a quick preview of what I'll be covering. First, I'll be talking briefly about the ear anatomy. Only what's necessary to understand the different types of hearing loss and available treatment discussed in this presentation. Next, we'll go over types of hearing loss. Then, I'll show you an abbreviated timeline of hearing aid technology, which will then lead us to the technology available and in practice today. Finally, I'll summarize all the different technologies covered and also give you some links to more information if you're interested in learning a bit more. Alright, so let's start with some anatomy. The ear can be divided into three sections, generally speaking. The outer ear in green consists of the ear canal and eardrum. The middle ear in red and blue consists of the ossicles, namely the malleus, incus, and stapes, and are actually the smallest bones in the human body. The third section, containing the cochlea, is the inner ear and is shown in purple. Lastly, the cochlea's output is delivered to the brain's auditory brainstem via the auditory nerve or cochlear nerve. Now let me give you a quick explanation of how the entire auditory system works. First, the air vibrations outside the ear travel through the ear canal to the eardrum, where it too vibrates according to the frequencies present. It's able to vibrate freely thanks to the eustachian tube, which provides air pressure equalizations to both sides of the eardrum. Attached to the posterior part of the eardrum are the ossicles, which also vibrate in sync with the eardrum and act as an amplifier. The last bone in the ossicles is the stapes, which passes the vibrations to the base of the fluid-filled cochlea. Depending on the frequency present, the signal will resonate at a specific location within the cochlea, stimulating tiny hair cells at that very location. Zooming into the cochlea, this is what one of the many hair cells looks like. In our class, we've studied the structure of interneurons, which transmit action potentials from one neuron to the dendrites of other neurons. This hair cell is an example of a sensory type of neuron. The sound waves stimulate the hair cells by bending the stereocilia. Consequently, non-selective cation channels sensitive to stretch open and an inrush of positive potassium and calcium ions depolarize the cell body. The action potential output of the sensory cell is fed to the auditory nerve, leading to the brain's auditory brainstem, and later to the auditory cortex in the brain where we make sense of the sound. So that was how the ear functions in a nutshell, and we can now take a look at what types of things can go wrong between the pinna, the external part of the ear, and the auditory brainstem. Many things such as tumors, disease, or long-term exposure to loud sounds can negatively affect our ability to hear, and all of these may have different levels of severity. Generally speaking, there are three types of hearing loss. Conductive means there are problems in the outer or middle ear. Secondly, abnormal or weak hair cells in the inner ear's cochlea leads to sensorineural hearing loss. And lastly, neural hearing loss is the most severe case where the transmission line to the brain is damaged. Of course, a combination of these types of hearing loss is also possible, which further complicates treatment. I've compiled a crude timeline just to show you how today's hearing aid technology has evolved. Centuries ago, people used things such as ear trumpets to funnel sound into their ears, acting as primitive amplifiers. The first picture to the right is an acoustic chair made for a king in Portugal of the 19th century. People would actually come to speak to the king and have to kneel down and talk into the arm aperture on either side of the chair. The sound funneled back behind the chair, up through a tube, and into the ear of the king. Alexander Graham Bell's telephone invention put people back on their feet by inspiring the first electronic, carbon-based hearing aid. A couple decades later, you could upgrade to a nice tabletop vacuum tube hearing aid. Later, Bell Laboratories developed the transistor, which led to better quality and smaller hearing aids. The transistor-based analog hearing aids continued to become better and smaller. Meanwhile, digital hearing aids started to emerge after the first microprocessor was developed in the 70s. Which brings us to today. Here's a list of the technologies I'll be covering in the preceding slides. First, I'll talk briefly about the outer ear hearing aids, which are front-end solutions for many common forms of hearing loss. Then I'll talk about a few different popular implant solutions. Implants bypass dysfunctional parts of the ear and stimulate others. The implant treatments I'll be covering include bone conduction, middle ear implants, cochlear implants, and finally auditory brainstem implants. Nearly all external hearing aids of today are digital and consist of a microphone or two, analog to digital converters, digital audio processing, digital to analog converters, and finally audio output to a speaker in the ear canal. Technology has advanced so much that tiny hearing aids can be put directly into the ear canal, going almost unnoticeable to others. Larger options that have processors outside the ear are able to do a few more things with the extra space, such as use two microphones for directional hearing, stream music, TV, or phone calls directly to your ear, and even change settings to adapt to your environment automatically using geotags. Outer ear hearing aids are front-end solutions that act as amplifiers, but can only help in limited situations. Sometimes the ear canal is too obstructed, or the eardrum is dysfunctional due to a birth defect or disease, and we would like to bypass this dysfunctional part of the ear. Implants have developed into a highly common and successful procedure for hearing loss treatment over the last couple decades. The next few slides I'll discuss the different types of implant technology which have the ability to treat anywhere from mild hearing loss to full deafness. Ear implants are surgical procedures which, instead of speaker output of air vibrations, the output is an electrical stimulation or even a mechanical actuation. Here we look at one implant solution called bone conduction, which bypasses both the outer and middle ear. Many people don't like to listen to themselves on a recording, including myself. The psychological reason is because the recording is different and foreign to how we have profiled ourselves. The reason why the recording is different than how we hear ourselves is because when we talk, most of what we hear is through bone conduction from our voice box to our cochleas, which is a natural and internal auxiliary path to our cochleas. As shown in the figure, bone conduction treatment involves a titanium implant inserted into the temporal bone near the ear. The mechanical vibrations replicating those frequencies captured in the air propagate from this implant through the temporal bone to the cochlea where it is stimulated. An advantage over other hearing aid techniques is that the sound in the bone also propagates to the other ear's cochlea, slightly attenuated by the extra distance traveled, which results in the ability of sound localization. Today, middle ear implants involve bypassing the outer ear and directly vibrating the ossicles, usually the stapes, with a floating mass transducer, which is shown in the figure. The audio is picked up outside the ear and digitally processed. It is then sent through the skin to the implanted coil, where the signal travels down to the floating mass transducer attached to the stapes and vibrates accordingly, stimulating the cochlea. A popular solution for sensory neural hearing loss, treating up to total deafness, is a cochlear implant. The audio signals are transferred to the implant in a similar fashion as before, but now instead of vibrating the ossicles, the signal is sent to an electrode which stimulates the basilar membrane and hair cells directly in the cochlea. The electrode is actually an electrode array, which can stimulate many different points along the cochlea, depending on the present frequencies captured at the microphone. Electrodes for cochlear implants is another topic to be presented by another classmate, so we'll move on to the last topic of auditory brainstem implants. A less common and very intricate procedure of today to treat deafness is an auditory brainstem implant. There are many ways the nerve fibers from the cochlea to the brain can be damaged. For example, the removal of a tumor nearby may require partial or even full removal of the auditory nerve bundle. So how it works, the electrode implant bypasses the entire ear system and interfaces directly to the auditory brainstem with another electrode array. This type of implant requires extensive speech therapy and time because the brain is essentially learning or relearning how to perceive sound in an unnatural manner. So to summarize the technologies we've talked about, we've come quite a long way since ear trumpets and bulky tabletop solutions. Tiny digital outer ear hearing aids now function seamlessly with our lives for many cases of hearing loss where all that is needed is some amplification. When more than just amplification to the eardrum is needed, we look at a variety of implant procedures which bypass dysfunctional parts of the ear. The processors of all the implant solutions sit just outside the temporal bone, which means upgrades can be easily done as technology evolves, and routine surgeries are not needed. So lastly, I just wanted to share a few links. The first one is a just over 1 hour video of a cochlear implant surgery. It's pretty interesting and informational if you can stomach it. The second is a short animation of how the middle ear FMT implant works. And lastly, there's a 10-minute ABC News video of a deaf toddler going through the process of an auditory brainstem implant. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed and learned a lot from this presentation, and thanks for your time.